And then you can stick in at half your druid level, I think, so 7 hours. I mean, you probably would not run into a limit there, actually.
Yeah, but can you talk as an earth elemental?
Who needs to talk? You're a smiting, raging earth elemental.
You're too mad to talk.
What do I have to talk about?
You're not the talky character. You're not the face of the party.
What is there to discuss? I'm an earth elemental who can smite. Let's fight.
Welcome to Monsters Multiclass, your Dungeons and Dragons fix. I'm Kevin Odie.
I'm Jared Bornicle.
And I'm Will Melvin.
And we'll be hanging out with you for a while to talk about anything and everything D&D related. On this episode, we're taking a look at the Artificer Wizard Multiclass, Steeders from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and then a segment of Ask Monsters in Multiclass where we dive into our favorite 3-class multiclass. So pull up a chair and stick around for a while.
Alright, so our multiclass this episode is the Artificer Wizard. The Artificer is the magical tinkerer and inventor class. It's a half-caster, generally plays a bit of a support role, but that can vary quite a bit based on their subclass. But one of the things that stay the same are their infusions, where they can actually make magic items for themselves or for party members. Then the other one is the Wizard, is the full caster with the ability to learn the most spells in the game. They're the nerds who learn magic by reading books all day. If artificers are the magical engineers, then wizards are the magical scholars. Both of these classes require 13 intelligence to multiclass into. So let's go ahead and get some first thoughts from Will. What are you thinking about this?
I don't know. I see this as another one of those situations where the classes are similar in a way that you wouldn't see meshing quite as well, maybe. Like there's a divergence in philosophy to both these schools of magic, where Artificer is the almost other side of intellectual magic. So as far as overlap there, I'm not really seeing it mechanically. I mean, it's all right, I guess, to add wizard stuff to things.
That should just be a general quote of the show. It's all right to add wizard stuff to things. Kevin, what do you think?
I'm kind of with Will on this one. We've yet to have a really good Artificer multiclass, if I'm remembering correctly. I was thinking this one would do it, and it's just okay mechanically. Like a 1-level dip is like kind of great, but that's barely a multiclass, not really exciting. We usually strive for more than just saying, "Oh, just do that," and moving on. But going deeper into like one or over the other, I don't know. I'm not too sure. I'm not thrilled about it.
Yeah, and I think, I always try and look at it like from both sides of, if you go mainly wizard into artificer, what are you getting? What are you losing? I think for this one, mainly going artificer and going a bit into wizard can be worthwhile, but the other way around, it just feels like you're losing out on so much. We've talked about before how a dip into artificer just isn't that great. You get a couple of infusions, sure. Its first level is basically worthless.
This is the exception. If you mainly want to be a wizard, but start as artificer, go 1 level, then level 2 wizard the rest of the way, you are a wizard with medium armor and con saving throws and no slow down on your spell slots.
Okay. All right. So
this is the big exception of when a 1-level dip in artificer is good.
That's a fair point. So there'd be no slowdowns on spell slots. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's fair. It still is really just going to get you the armor, though? And is there anything else? Con saves. Okay.
Which is nice. I mean, that's good stuff. That is.
Yeah, and kind of the flavor of it's like silly ability that I specifically forget the name of every time on purpose. Magical tinkering. Yeah. Yeah, which is just really mostly flavor, lets you do some oddities here and there, but not that useful. Okay, so yeah, you got me there, but still I do think that going like a 3 dip or so into Artificer is just going to hold back your wizardness a little too much to make to be worthwhile. But you did immediately convince me at least a 1-level dip. I could justify it.
That will slow down by a level. You're like getting your 3rd level spells because it's based on the class level. So if you're a 5th level character, 4 in wizard, 1 in artificer, you don't actually have your 3rd level spells yet. You have to go 1 more level. So you'd be behind there. That's not a huge deal. But
not having to cast mage armor every single day, I feel like makes up for that.
Yeah, and proficiency in con saves. It's just for like every like 4 or 5 levels. If the rest of the party's not multi-classing, you're gonna probably feel a little behind because like 5th is a big jump, 11th is a big jump. That's when cantrips go up. Fighters get their extra attack and 3rd attack. You'd be slightly behind that, and the rest of the casters get 3rd level spells.
Yeah, but your cantrips are still scaling at the same time.
That's true.
So it's just your spell levels that, and you even would still get the spell slots.
Right.
So if you have good 2nd level spells, like you can still cast blindness and deafness at 3rd level, which is going to let you blind or deafen 2 people with 1 spell cast. So you're like losing out a little bit, but it's just on the spells themselves that you can't get.
Mm-hmm. Another positive of just like a quick dip, 2 levels or 3 possibly if you wanted to get to one of the artificer subclasses, the infusions. I mean, it's always nice for someone in the party to have infusions. You could give them to yourself, you could give them to others. Like, there's nothing, you can't really argue against that. It's like, yeah, here's some just universally good things to give to myself or my teammates. Is that worth slowing down your wizard progression by 2 levels, though? Because then the wizards getting all of their spells is also just kind of a universally good thing, too.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, some of the spells are going to be better than these infusions. But I guess it's a separate resource, so.
Yeah, you get, what, 2? We're talking about 2 infused items.
Correct.
And the first set's, it's not bad. It's just kind of...
Yeah, so you learn 4 to start, and you can infuse 2 at a time, I think. And then that, goes up.
Yeah, it's just not particularly exciting to me. Like I'm not saying that infusions are bad, again, just like Will said. But I just don't know if they're really worth a dip in and of themselves. Compared to like something like a fighter's 2-level dip where you get action surge and a fighting style. That's like, yeah, okay, I can justify that. But I don't know, for like a +1 item and maybe a bag of holding.
Right. Where there's a good chance the DM's just going to be kind of throwing these things out anyways.
At
and
some
if
point.
He's not, that's like a situation where you're probably doing this to fuck with him. And it's rarely a good path to start on.
Right. So, I mean, one just thing to say that's a positive of this multiclass in general that I actually meant to lead with is it is nice that there's the int overlap because intelligence is generally one of the more annoying stats to need to multiclass into. It's also pretty underutilized in 5th edition, having no uses outside of skills and your class. So it is at least good there that if you, for some reason, just really like multiclassing, there's a benefit, which, I mean, I'm not really for multiclassing for the sake of multiclassing, but there's a positive.
Right. I feel like I'm just going to keep piling on negatives here. Another weird thing is spell casting. The artificer spells need to be cast through like a thieves tools or tinkerer tools that you're proficient in. Later on, if you have an infusion, you can cast it through those, which does not line up with the focus of wizards.
Yeah, I don't know how often that's going to come up.
Yeah.
Maybe, I guess if you're doing like a mostly artificer dip into wizard, you might have a couple of spells that you can't cast because they're wizard spells. But how do you even determine? I guess you have to like mark them separately, like spells you learned because you're a wizard.
This is one of those where I think doing it raw, it would be a major pain in the ass, and I would just like as a DM tell the player, don't worry about it. If you're using your tinkerer's tools, it's just like you stick it in a pocket and then you pull out what you need from a component pouch or whatever for the wizard spell. It's just I would just kind of hand wave it. I don't think it's worth tracking.
I'm really with you. Like I've never found that much fun in trying to keep track of components or like what your focus is. It's just not that exciting to me. It doesn't feel like it puts any interesting limits in.
Right, and the majority of the time it's not an issue. Because if they're just a full spellcaster and that's all they are, it's probably just in their hand. It doesn't matter. Their hands are free. They're not fumbling around with weapons. I will say it definitely does come up when it's the hybrid of melee and spellcaster, where they want to have like a shield and a sword and cast spells. Like, okay, yeah, we need to keep track of that because that is the limiting factor there. But
take your warcaster feat.
Right, or just be comfortable dropping your weapon every time and then picking it up as a free action on the next turn and hope no one steals it from you.
Right,
it's the worst approach to that. It's just like
thematically it sucks. Yeah.
I don't give a good goddamn about the rules. That's just so lame.
Dropping your weapon every time,
juggling like a bag full of bird poop and a stick and a shield. And like, whoop, 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 whoop. It's like you ruined this experience for everyone at the table.
No, I don't know. Go ahead, Kevin.
Juggling. That's you hit it. You hit it there. You need to do it literally as juggling. You like throw the scimitar into the air, and as it's like spinning through the air, threatening to come down on your head, you're quickly like grabbing the bird shit out of the pouch, and you cast your spell and catch it just at the last second. That's how you have to flavor it.
I'm with Kevin on this one. That sounds cool. What I was gonna say, like we've had a couple of instances where there are ways that we've gotten around it that I think are cool flavor wise. I mean, the Eldritch Knight, it's in the class mechanics, but we had an Eldritch Knight in our game who was throwing their weapon and just calling it back as a bonus action the next turn, and that was just neat. It was a good use of their ability to bring that back. I don't remember the name of that ability, but that's not important. And then your class, Kevin, you just switched to a rogue bard, and your rogue is the arcane trickster. Mm-hmm. And we talked about having the mage hand just like holding the weapon for you as it is you casting spells. So I find that to be pretty interesting as well. Just something where it's cool and not really game breaking. But that doesn't help with an artificer wizard at all, does it?
Nope.
All right. So what I do like though is mostly artificer with a dip into wizard. I think that you get a lot from like a small 3 to 5 dip into wizard. You get arcane recovery, which is nice. The arcane tradition from wizard, extra spell slots, which is nice when you're a half caster, and access to more spell options. As we just discussed, there's a bit of weirdness there with the focus, but if you're ignoring that, it's really easy. If you're not ignoring it, I don't think it's the end of the world, and you can probably still do some switching and dropping when you need to cast a wizard spell in combat. But I think that arcane recovery needs to be thought about more because of the the artillerist. So they have their ability where they can make a cannon, the Eldritch Cannons, for free 1 time per long rest, but then otherwise it costs a first level spell slot. So usually that means you're potentially going to be using it every time. You might be holding off. Overall, you're going to have to consider your spell slots as a resource. But once you get more spell slots from being a wizard and your arcane recovery, which gives you even just a couple more first level spells per long rest, comes back. Let's say you take a short rest, get half your wizard level back in spell slots, and that ability comes back on a long rest. So where I specifically like it is near the higher levels, but when you get that explosive cannon at 9th level with the artillerist, so all of your cannon's damage rolls increase by a d8, and also as an action you can detonate your cannon. I feel like usually that's a really hard thing to justify, because blowing up the cannon means you have to either resummon it as an action, or you need to, just not have the cannon the rest of the fight. But if you have these more spell slots to use, I could see an interesting way to just be a little more loose with exploding the cannon, and it really does some great damage for only a first level spell.
What's the damage on it again? I don't remember.
Yeah, so at 9th level, it would be 3d8 damage on, like, if you summon the flamethrower, So you could do that, summon the flamethrower one on your first turn as an action, bonus action to control it, do 3d8 damage to everybody that it hits, barring a dex saving throw. On the second turn, use that bonus action again, do your flamethrower, and then explode it, and then it does 3d8 force damage, barring a dex saving throw, to all creatures within 20 feet of it.
Okay, and then resummon it next turn because you got the spell slots. Sure.
Yeah, if you want to. So it's just like a pretty powerful first level spell, and I think that explosive cannon otherwise doesn't get used enough.
Right. Yeah, and with arcane recovery, so it's half. Yeah, round it up. So you get 4 first level spell slots eventually, and then by the time you're level 8, you can essentially have 8 first level spell slots. Do this a bunch.
Yeah. Yeah, and just as often as you want. Now, the downside, of course, is that it's taking 2 turns to set up, but it also doesn't have to be done in a row.
Right.
You can, make your cannon turn 1, get your damage, and then if you want to wait a little bit to blow it up, that's fine. And you just get that option of bringing it back if you want.
Right.
Where you see your opportunity, where you're like, oh, there's like 3 of them around right now. I can do 9d8 force damage to all of these. That's, total, obviously.
Right.
That's pretty good damage.
Yeah. Yeah, all for just the first level spell slot, for sure. And yeah, what you're saying, mainly Artificer, going a bit in a Wizard. Sure, it is fine. Then you pick your subclass, and like divination's, of course, always good.
Right.
What was that, Kevin? Why is that good?
The portent dice. Right at the beginning of the day, you roll 2d20s, set them aside, and throughout the day, you can, as a reaction, replace someone else's roll or your own with one of these preordained dice.
Wow, what an incredible mechanic.
I know, it's so obscure and never talked about by anybody, especially not us, every single time Wizard comes up.
If we had a Monsters and Multiclass bingo sheet, Kevin talking about portent dice would definitely be on there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and it actually mixes well with the Artificer, with their Flash of Genius ability at 7th level. And it's just a really big, having that and portent is like the ultimate I control the rolls type character.
Right. Yeah, and you could flavor the portent less more like magical creepy wizard around a crystal ball thing, and more there's like some sort of tech. Yeah, like special goggles that can kind of like quickly fast forward time or something like that just for you. Give you like an interesting different perception or something like that.
Oh, that's kind of neat. I like that. The goggles of seeing 6 seconds ahead.
Or just get rid of the future telling thing altogether, and it's more like augmented reality goggles where you could quickly activate it and it gives some sort of highlight of the situation, point out a weakness or take advantage of this. You could also then flavor Flash of Genius the same way.
Right.
So it's like, it has its super mode where you can use the portent dice, but it burns it out real quick, and then your Flash of Geniuses.
Bro, does that play Half-Life Alyx?
Kevin, this is a fantasy RPG?
Yes, and it's fueled by magic. They're magic goggles. That's why you can only do it twice a day and not infinitely. The magic runs out until the sun rises
magic
again.
Capacitors or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you need to get new gems that you put into
magic
there.
Laser gun.
Yeah, then when you take a long rest, you spend some time meditating over the magic gems, and it restores it.
Yeah, like find like a wall outlet that just outputs magic. Just plug them in.
Oh man, the Underdark's like airports. It's just impossible to find an outlet anywhere convenient.
You have to take your long rest like sitting in this random long ass tunnel. That's like a thoroughfare for like all the creatures on the Underdark. It's like, yeah.
They don't attack you, but they glare like you
me.
shouldn't be there.
Right?
Right. You're just like kind of in the way of everyone. It's got to do that. Like, oh, excuse me, sorry. So you're like holding on to your goggles,
Right.
keeping them out of the way.
It's someone who's being particularly stubborn, instead of walking around you, blatantly steps over you while glaring at you.
So then with that Artificer dip into Wizard. I also would just point out that I don't feel like you're losing out on that much at later levels. You're like slowing down your Artificer, just class progression in general. But the last 3 or 4, I'll even say 5 levels of Artificer, they're not bad by any means. But if you're going to multiclass, I don't feel like you're losing out on as much as other classes. The 20th level ability is fantastic. The Soul of Artifice, maybe? Where you like, for every item you're attuned to, you get +1 to all your saving throws, and if you drop to 0, you can just not and just drop to 1 instead, blowing up a infusion. Those are great, but, we're talking about a multi-class, so level 20 doesn't matter.
Right. It's
everything
not so
else,
good that it's, like, game-shattering
right,
to not have it. It's not like the Druid or something.
Right, so level 15 is where you get your last subclass ability. So like with Battlesmith, it's the improved Defender, where your Arcane Jolt does more. The Steel Defender gains a bonus to their AC. And when it uses the Deflect, it does some additional intelligence damage. And then the Artillerist is that fortified position where you and your allies have half cover within 10 feet of the cannon. And you can now have 2 cannons at the same time, which is like obviously a fantastic, we'll say, capstone to the Artificer subclasses. And Alchemist doesn't matter. So if you take 15 into Artificer and 5 into Wizard, I feel like that's pretty good. You're getting your 3rd level spells for Wizard, get tons and tons of spell slots that you can use for your 1st level spell slot abilities, the Eldritch Cannons or the Steel Defender, which you probably don't need to call back that often, but it's there.
Right. Is it a spell slot to call back the Steel Defender?
Yes. If it dies, then you have to spend a spell slot and I think a minute, and you get it back.
No, it's at the end of a long rest. You can create a new one.
Read the paragraph above that.
Mending. Oh, die in the last hour. Smith's tools. The action provided within 5 feet. Inexpensively. Yeah. Okay. I always forget I need to read
So you
things.
just bring it back to life. You don't actually call it back.
Correct. You just bring it back. Bring it back, call it back, bring it back to life. I don't know. I feel like we're just saying the same thing here.
Right.
It's a robot dog. There's a lot of
Oh, and I only just realized this. Mending is a cantrip.
Right.
Yes.
And so the Steel Defender heals if you cast Mending on it by 2d6. And for some reason, I thought it was like a 1st level spell. I guess I haven't really looked at it closely in a while. It's a cantrip. So after every fight, you could just get it back up to full.
Yep.
It's kind of nice. I didn't realize that. That makes it a good bit better, actually. Because I was thinking otherwise it's kind of weak, but it'll start every fight basically at full health.
Yeah, that is pretty good, actually. Because it gets a lot of health as time goes on here.
Yeah. Steel Defender or Battlesmith is definitely one where you need to kind of focus on being an Artificer. And if you're multi-class, and just do a quick dip, because otherwise it really does slow down your Steel Defender, your main class feature. Because all of that, it boosts based on Artificer level.
Right. But if you're getting to 15 with it, that's 15 times 5, which nobody can do that math. I'm pretty sure it's 75. Plus
15,
intelligence modifier.
Yeah, 15
and then
is
it's
plenty.
gone. Yeah. So I like that. I feel like that'd be a good mix. And you can get a lot from the Wizard class. I was trying to think of which ones overlap well with Battlesmith and Artillerist. But before I do that, I feel like I've done a lot of talking. Do you have any subclass combos that you guys have thought of?
Nothing I liked.
Oh, okay. Well,
so talking about that, Blade Singing seems like the obvious choice for.
Oh, Kevin!
let him say it, Will.
With Battlesmith, because Blade Singing is kind of the more melee focused wizard, but I think there's too much overlap and too many kind of gotchas in it to make it actually not worthwhile.
Interesting. Where so?
Blade Singing, so you get at 2nd level, you get training in War and Song. You gain proficiency with light armor, which you already have. Proficiency of one type of one-handed weapon. You get proficiency with all martial weapons. I guess proficiency in performance, so that's new. But
right.
And then in Blade Song, it's if you wear anything more than light armor, it ends. So it wastes your medium armor proficiency of the Artificer and Battlesmith. If you use a shield, it ends, so it wastes that proficiency. And if you attack with a 2-handed weapon, it ends. so it also wastes that proficiency. It just seems like there's too much waste, too much overlap. What you get as well, your blade singing is decent. I mean, that's fine. AC boost by your intelligence is great. Walking speed by 10 feet is great. Advantage on acrobatics checks is whatever. And then the bonus to your con saves. I know, so all that's good. But all of the other stuff, training in War and Saw and the rest of the proficiencies, and what you have to have active for Bladesong to work, just negates so much of the Artificer and specifically the Battlesmith.
So one thing that I just thought of, is there anything preventing you from dropping a shield before you activate the Bladesong? If you
Not.
So you could just have the shield, and then when you want to enter the Bladesong, just throw that to the ground and then enter it. And I feel like that at least allows you to have that aspect of it.
Doffing and donning a shield is an action.
It's a whole action? Oh, yeah. Right, because you actually have to clip that in.
Yeah, it's strapped onto you.
Don, doff.
Yeah. Right.
It's
okay,
not
well, that's
just an object interaction, unfortunately.
Right. Okay, well, that's fair. That's mildly annoying. It would be a lot of setup for that.
Yeah, that alone I think makes it not worth it.
I don't know if I agree. I feel like the Bladesong is so good that a 2-level dip, getting all of the wizard spells and the spell slots, and just that bonus to your AC equal to your intelligence modifier. I mean, are you going to care that much about whether or not you have light armor or medium armor there?
Yeah. I mean, you could do it, twice a day? Bladesong?
Nope, twice per short rest.
Oh. That is quite a bit.
I guess it kind of depends on if you're chasing Dex, which you probably would be in this scenario.
Yeah.
I don't know what else you'd need.
With Battlesmith, that's allows you to, I guess we didn't explicitly say, that allows you to use your intelligence for your attack and damage rolls with melee weapons instead of strength or dexterity. And not even melee weapons, just when you attack with a magic weapon, you could use your intelligence instead of strength or dex. So I guess you could do that with ranged weapons too. Never really talked about that. You do with a longbow.
Or a gun.
Or a gun, which is somewhat expected. Now, that doesn't work with Bladesong, of course, because that has to be a blade. Well, it has to be a one-handed weapon. Melee weapon?
Yeah.
Does it say melee?
Well, so the proficiency you get is in a one-handed melee weapon of your choice. But if you're Artificer with the Battlesmith, you get all martial weapons anyways. That's here. It ends if you don medium or heavy armor or shield, or if you use 2 hands to make an attack with a weapon.
So, a hand crossbow is not two-handed, so you, I think, officially could still use that.
Or a one-handed gun.
Or a one-handed gun, sure.
Yeah.
Which, that makes sense. Bladesong starts to lose meaning very quickly.
Right.
This is why I started with Ugh Kevin, because your blade singing seems to fit with the Steel Defender. It's in what way does it do that? You're a fancy rapier using elf who does fancy rapier elf things. Why do you have a robot
who now
dog?
has a fancy robot dog?
You would be kicked out of blade singing school.
All right, make it like a fancy.
If you even hinted at Artificer levels.
It's like a fancy
at it.
robot cat, not a dog. Cat. Those are more agile and more fitting for the Bladesong. Doesn't have to be a dog. I know that's the art, but
it's not really the form of the robot animal defender. It's more just the general thematic cohesiveness. It's not doing a lot.
I will agree that I don't love the flavor of it. I'm sure there's something out there, though, that we're not thinking about. I mean, there always is. So there's probably a way to do it.
Yeah. So I did not realize Bladesong was a twice per short rest. I thought it was per long. So that does make it better because you will have this up probably almost every fight.
Right.
So not having medium armor or a shield is going to be made up for because you could just 100% focus on intelligence. So you're going to have +5 to your AC when this is up, which is pretty nuts. +4 probably more early on.
And it's not going to be too long to get your intelligence back up. I don't know half elf actually probably would be a pretty fitting class for this, as you could get intelligence and dexterity starting at 16, at level 1, and then it would just take you until level 8 to get your int to 20, and then from there just focus on dexterity. Be pretty easy to get those at 20 and 20 near higher levels.
So there's a bunch of different races you could do that with. Yeah, it's half elf gives you charisma, which is a little bit of a waste.
Is it half elf charisma? I thought half elf. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's +2 to charisma and then +1 to either.
You need that for your performance skill.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Okay, so yeah, there's a couple of races I think that it would work out all right with. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like it works really well mechanically speaking.
Yeah. I don't like the wasted proficiencies of medium armor and stuff like that, but I think you can make it work. Probably end up just being a dual wielding battlesmith.
Might as well.
Yeah, I'd say that it works with this. It's not as optimal as like a two-handed weapon for damage, but two-handed weapon makes you not be able to sing with the blade anymore. So
yeah, my only argument against that is you're probably not going to use it too often because your bonus action is going to be taken up by the Steel Defender to command it. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, you can still hold it for when you don't. If you're like, oh, I don't have a use for my Steel Defender this time, I'm just going to swing twice.
Right.
I guess it's just a matter of which one does more damage, which might be your Steel Defender. That, I guess, depends. If you're using, like, Arcane Jolt, I could see that. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, you can do that. You can just use your Arcane Jolt yourself.
Right, it's either or. Yeah, so the Steel Defender 1/8 +2 force, and I think that slightly goes up by +1 when your proficiency bonus goes up.
Right.
So, yeah, there's options.
What it actually, like flavor-wise, what actually fits a little better, I think, is War Magic, which we always avoid talking about because it kind of sucks. But I think it's a little bit better in this scenario where we have surrendered to just a 2-level dip.
Yep, and I think the intelligence requirement and tactical wit is usually why we stray away from it, is because when we're talking about a multi-class with a wizard, a lot of times we're talking about like a small dip, 2-level dip into it, and it's like, yeah, you don't really need intelligence that high, so that bonus to your initiative is like +1 or +2, and in those cases, who really cares? But when we're talking about this one, that's going to be +5 to your initiative rolls, as well as the Arcane Deflection, which gives you a great use of your reaction. So yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you, Will. I think War Magic is actually pretty good with this combo.
2-level dip with Battlesmith, absolutely.
And fits very well for Artillerist.
I mean, it fits well with all of them, because the only two worth mentioning are combat wizard themed.
I can't wait until Armorer comes out so we can talk about another Artificer subclass without disdain.
Brotherhood of Steel.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm with you though. War Magic is pretty great, and I don't think that the Artificer is going to be using the reaction that much, like a straight Artificer. The only thing that they really use the reaction for is the Flash of Genius, and I think most times you're going to be happy that you have an unlimited use of +2 bonus to your AC or +4 bonus to a saving throw over the +5 if your intelligence is that high. Bonus from Flash of Genius. Flash of Genius you can give to friends, though, which is nice. And also, Arcane Deflection, you can only cast cantrips until the end of your next turn. I don't know how much that's going to be a problem if you can't cast a spell next turn. Probably just as much if you went War Magic anyways.
I guess the question, most rounds I know, am I going to cast a spell in the subsequent one? That's not always true, and I'm sure this will bite you on the ass if you overuse it, but having it there is nice.
Right.
And especially with a DM rolls out in the open kind of thing, and you do the math in your head, you can eventually start exploiting the shit out of this.
In a good way, too, because I feel like we've talked about this on the show before, but I definitely think with abilities where you get, this, you're expending something, a resource of some sort, to gain a bonus for a short period of time, I feel like you should know what the roll is, because otherwise you're just completely wasting it.
And the flavor here is you do math well, because you're an engineer or something.
I'm assuming the Steel Defender's reaction, Deflect Attack, does not take the character's reaction.
I believe that is correct.
Okay. Because I say otherwise, they're going to really step on each other's toes.
Yeah, it has its own turn because it says it shares your initiative count, but it takes its turn immediately after yours. It's not just taking up your turn. So
right, it's not your reaction. It
Yes.
does it when you tell it to do it, but it doesn't take a resource from you.
Right.
Another thing, though, to keep in mind of Arcane Deflection, it will step on the toes a bit with Warcaster. There's a really good chance you're going to want Warcaster. Warcaster, the feat for the advantage to concentration checks, especially if you're Battlesmith up in the fray and all that, which then allows you to, as a reaction, cast a spell as an opportunity attack, which can be really, really great when it comes up, but this will just completely derail that.
That's true. I don't feel like people take Warcaster for the opportunity attack spell casting. Not saying never, but just it doesn't seem like the first thing. Usually it's the fact that you're a Gish and you're trying to hold a weapon and cast spells, or you want advantage on those concentration checks. It does step on it a little bit, though. That's something you have to keep in mind for sure.
All right, one thing we've been dancing around here is the flavor of all of this. The flavor of an artificer multiclassing into a wizard is not very exciting.
It's kind of just okay. Like, it just makes some sense.
It's like a paladin becoming a fighter. It's just like, yeah, it makes sense for you to just be able to do that. Like, it doesn't really need to be a moment.
Right. I don't even have my workaround though of where it could be this really cool thing of turning from their oath, as we talked about in the paladin fighter.
Right.
It just, who cares? If the artificer wakes up one day and they're like, "Hey guys, I'm going to study books instead of tinkering with this crap."
I mean, it's
Have
not
fun,
even
bud.
that, because most likely with tinkering with the crap, they're also reading books about tinkering with crap. I mean, it's still
This one
a
adds a
learned
special book.
thing.
That's the flavor is you now have a special book.
A spell book.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not really getting much out of it. It's, I think, something that might come up organically if you're a wizard and maybe you meet an artificer along the way and it's like, wow, that's a really cool way to use magic that I haven't thought of. That's really goes both ways on that. It's, wow, that's a different way to use magic.
You're an artificer and you beat that wizard to death. Then you have his book.
And you're like, wow.
So you decide to learn what's
cool.
in it.
Neat.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not getting anything interesting from it. I think the only thing that becomes interesting is what school of magic you take. I can't think of why an artificer would go into the school of necromancy. But if you had
Grim Harvest is just terrible. Hey. Yeah, that's the problem. The ones that are solved for us have no other flavor to them. Because anything that's good is just I'm a war magic or I don't know.
Right. But School of Evocation, it's yeah, that's fine. You wanted to do your big bursty damage. Works.
But I mean, artificers don't even really get that. I don't think they have much in terms of AoE blast damage. I mean, their spell list is pretty limited. But I don't think the evocation stuff applies to the Eldritch Cannons. Because isn't it when you cast an evocation spell?
Yes.
Yeah, but they do get Fireball, which is, their thing.
Oh, as on the list, the special list. Got it. Okay.
And that's Artillerist, correct? Yeah, Artillerist.
Yeah, Cannon Master.
Yeah. And the Artillerist is just so cool.
Yep.
Just
it's a great
that
class.
by itself. I just want to play one.
Yeah, I was thinking about that more because I've had a strict no artificers in my game thing just from a world perspective, but I thought about it more and I was I don't actually care that much. It's just a different way to use magic. You're the people who make magic items. How is that?
Yeah.
That seems like a perfectly normal thing to have.
I know your world is really kind of primitive in the sense not as in the world you made what a primitive.
No, I knew what you
meant.
meant. I knew what you meant.
Yeah. It's not very advanced in technology wise, but why can't there be an island off the coast that's no one's discovered yet where they're just kind of more advanced than everybody? And they have artificers there.
Or just the dwarves in general that you guys have not met in any capacity. They
right.
just are underground. You're one who makes magic items. That's fine. So
Sweet. All right. Kill off my character. Come back
No.
as an artifact.
no, that's not happening.
Sick. We got an airship.
Yeah.
The dwarves were hiding it in a cave or something.
Yep. Yeah. Could that be my character backstory? I have an airship with a full trained, battle-hardened crew.
Yes, that only seems
All right.
fair at this level.
Yeah. Yeah.
24 cannons.
But I get to name your character.
All right.
Oh, that's going to come back and bite him. That'll be a Twitter giveaway. Name Kevin's next character.
Oh boy.
Bodie
But I like naming
McBoatface.
characters.
Well, you shouldn't have given it up.
Yeah.
You just said okay, like so blasé.
Yeah.
So that's
Well, because
on
none
you.
of this is actually going to happen. You're not going to let me make an artificer with an airship full of a crew and 20 cannons to bring into our level 10 campaign.
Well, I might
Can
have.
we start using guns? Can we give up and start using guns?
I feel like you would hate that. Like you of all people would hate guns in D&D.
I would hate anybody else using them because they'd exploit the fact that they're just completely overpowered. But I should have the ability to shoot people just occasionally. That's how I see it.
So you want me to give you a magic item gun? Where it's like, you know,
I
once
want like a just breech loading double barrel shotgun. A Musty will use this. My druid will use it primarily as a club.
All right. It'll be pretty cool when I send you guys to hell. And you just get to be Musty the Doom guy. Just the Doom guy covered in mushrooms.
It's similarly laconic characters who don't really have a lot to say but beat the shit out of things.
Yeah. All right. So do we have anything else around the Artificer Wizard? I know we didn't talk about like every little bit of the Artificer. They have like a couple other class features that I think are just good, but I don't know if they really make the Wizard any better and vice versa.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's okay. A couple small dips here and there be good. I don't think any would be worth like 5 and 5 or 10 and 10 or
Yeah, that's
anything
actually
like
that's a
that.
good point. I've been thinking a lot about it from like the higher level aspects, which we generally try not to do. I don't know if I could justify like if you're only going up to 10 or 15, if this would really work out. Maybe 9 Artificer, 5 Wizard. I could do that because then you get your 3rd level spell slots, and if you're going Artillerist, you get your cool your explosive Eldritch cannons.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. But anywhere past 5 for the Wizard, I just can't see it. Besides that one level dip into Artificer that you mentioned at the start.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I said, ultimately kind of underwhelmed. It's not terrible. I'm not saying it's like, oh, there's nothing here at all. It's just, initially it sounds like, oh, this should be great. There should be so
Right.
much that works together. And it's like, you start picking through it. A lot of it doesn't work. There's a lot of stepping on each other's toes or just zero synergy. You just kind of exist separately. Not much interesting role playing. So it's like if you have that character concept and you want to do it and you want like extra spell slots from being a wizard or one of the wizard subclass features, or just start with con saves and medium armor for a wizard, sure.
Or you just want portent dice because you're just a dick like that.
Right. For as much
Yeah.
as we love talking about portent dice, I think we have only, in all of the years we've been playing 5th edition, had one character with portent dice
Yep.
for like one time.
It's because they're terrible. It's just like, hey, here's it's free lucky, basically. But it's worse, and I hate it.
It's not worse
But
than
it's
lucky,
a great
whatever.
dip. Holy shit. It just will probably also come back in our Ask Monsters and Multiclass segment. It is a really hard thing to say no to for 2 levels.
Yep. Definitely. All right. Well, that's it on this one. I guess we'll go ahead and move on to our promotional minute. So as usual, if you are not yet, please subscribe to us wherever you can find us, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. That's at monsters_multi. Subscribe to our subreddit, our Monsters and Multiclass. And if you want to help out the show, you can go to monstersmulticlass.com/support. where you can find our Patreon. From there, you can get access to extra show notes, usually the ones that I specifically take, where I just make fun of Kevin the entire time because I know he's never going to read through them. As well as early releases every once in a while, as long as the episodes come out early enough. It's like a day early. I am super selling this. And for our $10 tier, recently we added DM help. So once a month, I'll get on a call with you on Discord and we can talk for a half hour or so just about your games, maybe your character, whatever you want to talk about. Otherwise, you can find some dice at Metallic Dice Games, who is our dice affiliate. Get 10% off using the code MM10 and buy some merch because merch looks really cool and that logo is awesome. And with that, let's move on to the Steeders from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. Cut that, Kevin.
Tomb of Foos.
No, now you can't. All right. So our monster of the week is the Steeders. They're big hunting spiders, and I don't really know what else you need. That seems to basically cover it. But if you do want more, the females are significantly larger and stronger than the males, said to devour the males after breeding, which is always a neat thing. I think, praying mantis do that, supposedly. I don't remember if that's actually true.
Probably. It sounds like a praying mantis thing. They're kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
No, it's one of those things where the scientists think it happens because they put two of these things in a jar and then they eat each other and you're like, wow, this is how they normally are.
Well, maybe that's what Mordenkainen did as well. He just locked up two Steeders and
Well, that's actually, they're domesticated and they eat each other.
Yeah. But they are, giant spiders. They are generally subterranean, so they're in the Underdark. Races like the Durgar use them for battle, as well as for what most societies would use horses for, at least the male ones, just kind of pack mules. Pretty low challenge rating, so they're not going to be like a campaign builder by any means, but could still make for a pretty neat fight. So I guess let's go right into the stat blocks, unless you guys have anything else.
No? I was starting stat blocks, give everyone a frame of reference of what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, so they are split up into two stat blocks, the female Steeder and the male Steeder. They're not extraordinarily different from each other. Going through the females, which is the stronger one, has an AC of 14, HP of 30, speed of 30, and a climb speed of 30. The stats are pretty basic: 15 strength, 16 dex, 14 con, 2 intelligence, 10 wisdom, 3 charisma. Basically what you'd expect for any beast or monstrosity. For skills, it does have +7 to stealth and +4 to perception, so it definitely fits that hunter mentality, at least in the wild. Has dark vision out to 120 feet. Probably should have mentioned this earlier, but a challenge rating 1. And that is the stronger variant. It does have the spider climb ability, where it can climb difficult surfaces, including upside down on ceilings, without needing to make any ability check. Probably comes from its sticky legs. Has an extraordinary leap, where its long jumps are tripled, and every foot of its walking speed that it spends on the jump allows it to move 3 feet. So is that just basically just saying that it can jump 90 feet?
Weird. Every foot of its walking speed that spends on a jump. Yeah. Okay, so it's just tripled.
That makes sense. Yeah, so
I
that
think
way
it
it's
just
not
goes on to clarify it further. I think that's all it is.
Right. So what would its long jump be? Because that's normally your 15, the strength of 15 times something. Like if you get a running long jump.
There's math for this.
There is math for it.
Somewhere.
Yeah, it's in the... Keep going, I'll look it up.
Okay. So it can jump really far. Its 2 actions are it can either bite or use its sticky leg. The bite is +5 to hit, reach of 5, single target, 1d8 piercing damage plus 2d8 poison. And then its sticky leg is same deal, +5 to hit, reach a 5, 1 medium or smaller creature, and if it hits, the target is stuck to the Steeder's leg and grappled until it escapes with a DC of 12. The Steeder can only have 1 creature grappled at a time.
Long jump, by the way, is your strength score. If you move at least 10 feet before the jump, you can do a long jump and jump up to your strength score.
Okay, so it can triple that, so it can jump 45 feet.
No biggie.
Yeah. Which I think sets you up for cool environments for this to fight in. Because it's not very often that I feel like jumping 45 feet is helpful. Right. Unless you can also jump to the ceiling and jump from stalagmite to stalagmite. Or tight, depending on how you're feeling.
Yeah, that could be pretty cool. Yeah, leaping up to the ceiling and stuff like that. Though I guess that's a high jump, which has different rules, but whatever. And so I guess that's actually that's why the second sentence is important. Every foot of its walking speed that it spends on the jump allows it to move 3 feet. Because otherwise, its 45-foot jump would usually you cannot jump further than your walking speed.
Correct.
Like your turn ends there. You either fall or you end your turn in the air, depending on how you'd like to do that. So this allows you to do that. They could probably, in theory, dash and jump double that. Well, no, I guess not.
No, because they're still limited by the strength score there.
Right. That's here. And the high jump, so if you want to jump up to the ceiling, is when you make a high jump, you leap into the air, a number of feet equal to 3 plus your strength modifier. If you move at least 10 feet.
That
they don't
is
get
not
a boost
triple.
to that.
Right.
So that's pretty limited. All right, so they can't jump up to the ceiling, but oh well.
They can climb up to it, though, and that's really all that matters.
Right.
So just to quickly go over the male stat block, it really is just a powered-down version of this without any major differences. It's a challenge rating 1/4, 12 AC instead of 14, 13 HP instead of 30, and all of its plus to hits are reduced by 1, and its stats are just overall a little bit worse. But otherwise, it is the exact same creature, and yeah. So, what are some interesting encounters we can think of for this, guys?
Well, so ignoring Durger, which we were just talking about, we'll do not Durger. How did you say it? I've been saying it wrong all these years.
I don't know. You say
Dwargar.
Yeah,
Dwargwar. I don't know. the Underdark Grey Dwarves.
Durger.
Something like that.
Dwargar.
That's the main use for these, as Jared was saying, and that's
Dwargar.
most likely when you're going to encounter them. They even have riders for them. We're planning next episode to do them, and there's a bunch. That'll be a longer discussion, and the Steeders will come back. So this episode, we're going to specifically focus on just the Steeders, wild Steeders, which would definitely be more of a rare thing. But I mean, since they're not crazy intelligence, highest is challenge rating 1, this would be a low level random encounter. Is I think probably the most common that'd be used.
Right, and trying to use its stat block for what it is, with that stealth of +7, to me that's screaming that it's going to, hide, it's going to jump to where the PCs are, in like a quick flash, probably try and sticky leg one of them, and then just run away.
Mm-hmm. Jump away, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean,
I feel like these things should never be walking. Unless it's to climb.
Unless
they're
it's
climbing
to climb.
or they're jumping.
Yeah, I'll totally agree with you there. And that makes for an interesting enough encounter. If they grab an NPC, though, it can make it even more interesting. It's one of those encounters where, of course, the end goal is we need to kill this thing so that, it stops taking our friend. But taking somebody who's weaker is going to be a lot more interesting than taking the paladin who's going to be like, oh, I'm grappled. Oh, no. I guess I don't have to worry about this anymore.
Right.
But I would say I feel like it needs a little bit more spice to the encounter, though. And the base stat blocks leave me wanting a bit more.
Yeah,
they're just spiders, man.
Right, so I would create like a battlefield with these things where it takes advantage of their climbing and their jumping. It's a multi-tiered kind of like cavern where you encounter them, where they're leaping from shadows, leaping down on things, crawling up on ceilings, being hard to hit. And I would do a large number. Unfortunately, the lore says they're pretty solitary, which would just kind of make all of this sort of suck. They're lone predators because they're not that interesting on their own, even for like a level 1 party, it's still just going to kind of beat the crap out of this thing.
Right.
I'd want to throw out the lone predator bit of the lore, and they're in a group. And you kind of walk into a nest of these things, and they're leaping from shadows and across the battlefield and dropping on you from the ceiling, and you don't even know how many there are because their stealth's really good too, and they have dark vision out to 120 feet. So they leap in, they do an attack, they leap out into a shadow. Another one comes out. Is it the same one? Is it a different one?
You can only tell
know.
because you see your halfling attached to its legs. You're like, oh,
Right.
that's the one we've already attacked.
Right, yeah.
What would actually work pretty well is a giant cavern with, kind of think like, instead of a floor, you've generally got like pillars. So
Right.
trying to cross that with jumps, you as the DM would have to be a little bit detailed, not to make this exhausting or just flat out impossible, but they would easily be able to cover this. Your party, less so.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely makes for crossing any type of awful location. And when you're talking about the Underdark, there's a lot of times where it's like, yeah, the terrain here just sucks. So if you're going through a cavern and you have to go along a tight wall where everybody's kind of like backed up against it, and then Steeders just come down from the ceiling, and now you have to fight them, you're fighting the environment as much as you're fighting these creatures. And I think that is what's going to make these, in any way, interesting creatures.
Right. Yeah, because, the Underdark had a lot of climbing sections, and so they show up there when you're scaling a cliff face, or the way forward is straight down a tunnel that was bored out by a purple worm. Straight down.
Right.
And, Steeders are hanging out down there as you try and get down it.
Right, and they're not intelligent by any means, but I think just instinct alone is going to tell them to set up in areas where they have an advantage. I mean, that's just makes sense, right? So any type of terrible terrain for most things to cross through, you should expect a Steeder.
Right.
Now, I also was thinking of easy ways to make these a little more difficult to fight. Its sticky leg by itself is not that great. If you wanted to just like bump the challenge rating up, obviously adding its plus to hit and the escape DC is one simple way, but giving it multi-attack, which it doesn't have right now, would be really straightforward. But I'd also probably add something to its bite where it could paralyze a creature, because spiders, I always think of that paralysis, and
Right.
I understand at challenge rating 1, having any type of paralysis can be a bit strong. But if you were trying to do this against a level 5-ish party, I think adding a save on the bite, or else you are now stunned, makes this for, again, a more interesting fight that feels like you're fighting spiders.
Right. Or if you don't want to go as far as the paralysis condition, do the poison condition.
Right.
Which is more lower level friendly. Like, it already does poison damage.
Yeah.
So it's like you get hit for a 1d8 plus 3 piercing plus 2d8 poison plus then make a save. Otherwise, you have the poison condition.
Yeah, so poison or any type of poison condition definitely makes sense for lower levels, and it's right there. I mean, it's just the fact that they didn't have any type of advanced Steeder does kind of bother me a little bit, just from a general design standpoint. I feel like most people are going to look at this and pass over it because the stat blocks look so mediocre otherwise.
Right.
I think it's important to note here that these are not the only spiders in the book.
Correct.
They're a variant of spiders, so if you're really looking to make a spicy, flavorful, spider-themed encounter, these might not be the best ones to go with.
Yeah, like there are giant spiders, which are challenge rated 1. And they do have the poison condition on the bite, the web ability. Yeah. The Steeders really seem more like the domestication friendly version of spiders. Like they really are meant to be with the Duergar. I'm just going to keep saying Durgar because it's what I've been saying for years now. But that also sets up something else where we kind of hit on this in the Modron episode, where you don't, just because there's a stat block doesn't necessarily have to mean it's like these things are clearly meant to be fought and killed. I mean, they're low enough challenge rating where, like, if your party comes across a male Steeder, maybe let them try and wrangle it. And this is someone's mount. Like, it's not that game breaking. Like, at level 1, maybe, but if you're higher level, it's like, okay, that's kind of a cool, flavorful Underdark mount.
Right, or it could at the very least be a thing that helps them out for a specific issue. Like we were just talking about crossing difficult terrain. Well, if they give the Steeder some food and, roll some good animal handling checks or cast friends or whatever they need to do to get this thing in their good graces, then it takes them across without issue. Cool. I mean, that's neat at the very least. And I know we're going to talk about the Duergar mounts and like the specific stat block later, but I would also say that though that is the flavor of them, you could really put any creature you want on top of this.
Yes.
So if you just want to have a random person in the Underdark or even outside of the Underdark, because at the end of the day, these things are just spiders, and if in your world you want them to be in forests, fine, who cares?
Yeah,
it's just
they don't have sunlight sensitivity or anything like that, so yeah, that's a good point.
Right. So you just take them out into the open, and now just any enemy that needs to fight against the party is going to make this a little more interesting, because now they have absurd mobility. And
it's worth noting, actually, that these aren't just spiders. They're technically monstrosities and not beasts. So that doesn't mean anything, but like they do have to be ridden by like evil things, I guess. I don't know.
Do you think?
Well, I mean, they're unaligned.
They're unaligned, but they're monstrosities, Kevin. That has a connotation behind it.
Yeah,
Yes.
but like, an eccentric rich person would totally have a Steeder. It's like, are they evil? Sure. Yes, but
you'll find out. I mean, when you fight him on his Steeder, but
right.
It could also just be a neat flavor thing, though. Like if you want to make somebody seem super weird, where it's like everybody has horses and there they are just riding their spider, and they're the monster tracker, and they're like, yeah, it's just normal for me. Horses are too simple; they can't go on ceilings.
Yeah, it's kind of like. All this being said, there's already a monster that fits this flavor, the Carrion Crawler. It's also an Underdark insect bug-based mount.
Yeah, but it can't leap.
Where they're kind of like, nobody can crawl.
I don't know, the leaping is actually a lot cooler, in my opinion, than just the crawling.
Yeah.
It does not seem practical for mounted combat.
The leaping? I imagine if you have one of these, it's like a special sort of outfitted saddle where you kind of like strap yourself into it.
Yeah.
I mean, the picture's pretty explicit.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be hanging upside down.
It's got like a Coachmaster's bench going on there with its shell.
Yeah, its art is interesting. Because it's not just like a spider. It does look like it has a shell, even though it's not mentioned anywhere. I think it's just kind of like a big bulbous growth off its back.
Yeah.
And I kind of like it. It sort of looks like a cross between a spider and a hermit crab.
Yep, I see that. Which could give you another thing if you were ever so inclined to change monsters around, as I always am. Where like if you hit it with a melee attack, maybe you take some piercing damage.
Oh, because of all the spikes?
Yeah, because of all the spikes. I could just see something like that.
Yeah. Or just looking at the art, this is the type of thing that might have a damage threshold. You have to hit it hard enough to get through that shell.
Yeah, I don't see those too often.
No, it's pretty rare.
But I don't know.
It's usually represented as just higher AC.
Right.
Because, I mean, that is simpler and it's less math to keep track of, which is obvious philosophy, which is fine. But I do like damage thresholds.
Do you? I was going to ask, like, how just your general thoughts on damage thresholds, because I feel like they can be somewhat disappointing to players. If there's like a damage threshold of 5 and you only do 4 damage, it's like, it feels like your turn was wasted, but I don't know if that's like a bad thing.
Then the alternative is that the AC's higher and you just hit them less and then your turn's
right.
also wasted. So then you have to, I feel like it gives you more choice. If it's just like a slightly higher AC, it's just like, all right, make sure I do more attacks to hit more.
Right.
Where if it has a damage threshold and my like base attack is only getting through 25% of the time, it's like, all right, let's do different strategies. Can I help the paladin who will be hitting hard? Do I have something to pull out of my bag of tricks to be able to hit harder on this thing, something like that. I feel like at least gives you choice.
Wow, your DM gave you a bag of tricks? That's a really rare magic item.
Yeah. Is that actually a magic item?
No, it is not.
Okay.
At least not that I know of.
Yeah.
The beans.
Metaphorical bag of tricks.
Yes, there is the bean bag.
Yes. Well, a bag of beans. I think you guys had a bag of beans.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
We forgot about it. I don't think we used it once.
Didn't forget about it, just didn't have that many uses for it.
Right.
It's a lot more specific than it seems.
Remember that paint kit?
Oh,
it was
yeah.
so conceptually interesting.
I was so excited to give that to you guys, and it never came up.
Yeah, I knew when we got it.
Yeah, you could paint something. I forgot the name of it, but basically it's like Looney Tunes rules. You could paint something, and then it becomes real. Like paint a door into a wall. The problem was this was an Out of the Abyss, which was an Underdark campaign, so you were just in like cave systems, so you couldn't like paint a door on the side of a cavern and walk through.
It was a pretty combat-focused campaign in general.
Yeah.
And it just didn't have that much use in that.
Yeah. And you guys got it pretty later on.
So I have seen some interesting uses for that. I was sad that didn't come up more. I always like had it in the back of my head too, just like, all right, how can we use the paint set to get through this? It's like, nah.
Same, because Kevin was so excited about it, and I knew we'd never use it. And I was like, come on, we gotta draw a ladder or something, anything, guys. But it just nothing ever practical.
That's all right.
Yeah, always next time.
Yeah, in terms of Steeders specifically here, I don't think I have much else without looping in the Durger, which we'll do next time.
Yeah,
Just kind of like laying the groundwork.
Fairly simple, and again, just to wrap it all up, I think that the main thing to keep in mind is if you are going to use this as a random encounter, they're not going to be deadly. It's not going to be the hardest thing that the party fights all day, but it can make for a memorable traversal encounter where they need to get somewhere and it's difficult for them to navigate, but it's easy for the Steeders too.
Right. Or just, modify them a bit, add a poison or paralysis.
Right.
Damage threshold on the shell, spike damage if you hit them, stuff like that.
Right. They're a good start. There you go, wizards. I'll give you that. It's a good start to a monster, but I want to see more.
Like them being incorporated into an entire society of stat blocks.
Yes.
Yeah. Like
There should be a full chapter on these.
Hey, if they can make it interesting, I'm here for it. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our Ask Monsters and Multiclass segment.
the big one. The question we keep putting off.
Yeah.
We're finally doing it.
All right.
I don't know. Maybe this should have been its own standalone episode.
No, I don't think so because I hate this. So the new Brandon C asked, what is the most interesting 3 multiclass you can think of? And I think we've gotten this question a couple of times, like if we'd ever cover 3 multiclasses when we run out of the dual multiclasses. And our reason has always been no, because it's really tough to make them interesting.
And viable.
Yeah. And
then you start having, just from a entertainment podcast perspective, I think you start having a lot of overlap.
yeah.
Like, you got your fighter paladin, and then another,
Portent
11
dice.
classes to add to it. Fighter paladin wizard, and then fighter paladin bard, and then fighter paladin artificer. And it's like a lot of these aren't going to work, and so it's like, all right, well, we'll do one level dip and then move on.
Yeah.
It's going to start to be very samey conversations.
Yes. And also, from a role-playing perspective, it gets messy. Mm-hmm. Like we have trouble with some of these 2 multi-classes to make a actual interesting overlap. Throwing in a third is not going to make that easier.
Now, it's kind of at the point where you almost need to throw that flavor away. This is my character and their skill set, and I'm gluing classes onto it to do what I want. It's like you need to divorce the flavor from the classes, really.
Yeah. So
unless it is something again like a fighter paladin who finds a spell book, it's like,
yeah, I think there is potential for these to come up organically, but I just don't see many people finding interest in it. Like to that extent, you'd have to have a character whose focus is really just being a scatterbrain. So I guess there's that. Yeah. That said,
I do appreciate the question was asked is do you find the most interesting? I had in my head best. And it's like, no, I don't know if I could answer best. Doesn't work that way. But the person already thought of it. So yes, most interesting. That makes it more open-ended discussion.
Correct. Yeah. And yeah, the question itself is not bad. The question is great. It's the multiclassing thing that I don't like. So with that said, what are some interesting 3 multiclasses?
So I think there's probably a lot you could do with the charisma casters.
Yep.
This is a super min-maxy one. You guys are going to groan and roll your eyes at it, but it needs to be talked about. A Polurterer who takes a 1-level dip in Hexblade.
Hey, same, bro. That's what I wrote down.
Yeah.
Coffee lock with smites? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, my entire list is coffee lock with X.
Yeah, so the Paladin Sorcerer, and we already did that as a discussion, and it's great. It's universally considered an awesome multiclass, one of the best. You got your Sorcerer spells to fuel your smites, and a lot of these shortcomings of the Sorcerer are made up by how awesome Paladins are, and it's awesome. But it's a little mad, where you need Charisma and then Strength, and you probably don't want your dex to be that low.
Why?
Where then if you take 1 level...
Screw the dex. I don't need dex.
I don't know. Dex is always good. If you take a 1-level dip into Hexblade, you can now use your Charisma to attack. So just fully focus on that, which is awesome with Paladin and Sorcerer.
And then you take...
But I feel like that's like...
2 levels into Warlock, and you get those invocations where you never have to sleep.
Right. I was going to say, just taking the 1-level dip kind of feels like cheating and not quite in the spirit of this whole conversation. So yeah, I would go up to 3 levels. Go 5 Paladin, 3 Sorcerer, 3 Warlock, and then from there, take it how you want. So you get your Paladin extra attack. Sorcerer, you get meta magic options. You're kind of limited because you only got 3 sorcery points, but they're still there. And then decent spell slots. And then 3 levels into Warlock gets you your at least 2 spell slots coming back on a short rest, which they're still just level 1 at that point. Or are they level 2? I should have looked.
They go up to level 2 at 3rd level.
By that point? Okay, so 2 level 2 slots that come back on a short rest, which is amazing for smites. You get your invocations. You'll probably be a Hexblade, so you get your Charisma to add to it, and you get your Hexblade's Curse, which is a nice once per short rest ability, which they can crit on 19s and 20s and stuff like that. And add your Charisma, I think, modifier as damage, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And then you get your Pact Boon. So just take Pact of the Blade so you can overcome the limitations of a Hex weapon. So you can still be a 2-handed weapon wielding Paladin, Sorcerer, Warlock.
Oh, actually, sorry. The bonus to damage rolls against you said the Hexblade's Curse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that adds your proficiency bonus.
Right. That's it.
Which is
okay. Which
weird.
Goes up based on character level. So hey,
yeah,
even better.
Yep. That's like this is a min-maxy broken build, like entirely. It's
this is actually a little bit alarming.
I don't know if I go as far as
coffee lock smite.
Yes, you can coffee lock it, and there's no reason not to.
So I mean, we've said, oh no, you can't coffee lock, but you can.
You wouldn't be getting back. Like you would never take a long rest again. Is the thing. So you'd have to take the invocation of the moon, so you don't need to sleep really. Which means we have to be the Pact of the Tome. You can't take.
Is that
Blade.
Limited by that one? That sucks.
You can be Hexblade and Pact of the Tome.
Right,
but you can't do the
Blade stuff.
Who cares? All of that you're going to get from being a Paladin.
No, like as in you can't use your Charisma modifier on like a 2-handed weapon. It has to be a 1-handed weapon and a shield.
I don't care. I'm still just going to have unlimited smites, so that's fine. I'll take the D8
smites. That kind of does stop mattering.
Yeah, smite every time.
Right, like
and Hexblade's Curse with double crits.
Yeah, so in theory, you could smite on every single attack.
Right.
That's pretty dumb.
Yeah. So if you don't allow the coffee locking, which this is taking your Warlock spell slots, turning it into sorcery points, and then back into regular spell slots. Take a short rest to get the Warlock ones and repeat that ad infinitum. And just never technically take a long rest. You never run like you could have infinite spell slots below 5th level, is what the theory goes. And the argument is saying it's like taking a long rest is a deliberate thing. And it's even before there was the aspect of the moon where you don't need to sleep. People would argue, it's like, well, I sleep, but I'm not taking a long rest. I don't get all my health back and long rest abilities reset. I'm just sleeping so I don't get exhaustion. But people would like, no, if you're sleeping, you're taking a long rest. So then say, oh, well, I take aspect of the moon, which says I don't have to sleep. So there we go.
They had to have added that just to fuck with people.
Right. Are there...
They saw that on the forums, like, let's add an invocation to make this even more annoying.
Are there many paladin abilities that are long rest abilities?
It doesn't matter because paladins are all smites, and now you have unlimited smites. And the limitation is 5th level on the spells, which doesn't matter because that's the cap for paladins anyways.
Your sorcerer level would probably not be high enough to get the 5th level slots. So just keep that in mind. It would be lower. It would not be infinite 5th level spells because you're changing 20th. It into sorcerer spells.
If we're talking like a level 20 build, you could do it. 5 paladin, minimum 2 warlock, 9. And then that's 13 sorcerer.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Your lay on hands is a long rest, so you wouldn't have that, but basically you have infinite cure wounds. So whatever.
Yeah.
Divine sense, lay on hands, you have fighting style. Your spell casting, but the slots are shared slots, so divine smites, divine health, I would say like channel divinity is a short rest thing, isn't it?
No, actually, I think it's long rest for paladins, but let me double check that.
Shorter long rest. So you could go vengeance and still get your vow of enmities and all that great stuff.
Oh, God.
Curse, vow, smite.
Right.
Oh, my God. Yeah. This one works.
Suddenly find yourself banned from the Discord channel. Not allowed.
So, I think we already had a Warlock Sorcerer episode where we kind of talked about a whole bunch of in-game reasons to just not allow that coffee lock. So assuming that gets banned, where like you could be this, but you cannot. You
have to take a long rest. Yeah,
right. I mean, it's still obviously really good, but then you are limiting yourself more. Like your spells known to never get that high because you're spread out so much. You just have a bunch of low level slots. So you're basically just feeling a bunch of smites with the occasional kind of utility spell. Your meta magic is going to be basically non-existent because all the sorcery points are just going into. Well, never mind. You could just convert a spell slot back.
If you need it.
Yeah. Well, then we're not coffee locking, so you could still do that. You can still get a good number of extra sorcery points through your warlock stuff in a day. It's just not going to be infinite.
Right.
So overall, it's pretty solid. You just need to be comfortable with the fact that your ASIs are probably going to be not the greatest because you're taking odd levels and not hitting all of them, and you're never going to get those really cool high level spells.
Right. You'll still get charisma up to 20 though.
Right.
So
yeah.
So I think we're actually all in agreement. That's the most powerful one that I could think of that like actually works compared to other ones where it's like, yeah, I guess, this kind of works and you're not going to feel like total garbage. This is a 3 multiclass that is made better by taking all 3 classes.
The War Polluterer.
Assuming you just want to hit things hard as
Correct.
Paladin with smites.
Correct.
If that's all you want to do. Yeah.
I was going to say Polluterer.
Ooh.
Polluterer. Well, that's even worse.
Yeah, it hurts, doesn't it? A lot of L's. Polluterer.
Yeah. All right, so taking the Warlock out of it, but sticking with the Charisma casters, I think Bard, Paladin, Sorcerer could still be decent. 3 into Bard, go lower Bard, you get Cutting Words, you get Jack of all trades, so half your proficiency bonus to everything, you get Expertise, Bardic Inspiration, Bard spells, decent number of Bard spell slots, things like that. Paladins are just great at being a Paladin. Go up to 5 for multi-attack and everything. And then Sorcerer, potentially the rest in Sorcerer, just for the sake of getting enough meta magic options and keeping the full spell slot progression going to help fuel smites and things like that, or at the very least 3 for meta magic, and then dump the rest in kind of whatever you feel like. Not as good as with the Warlock, but an alternative to that, which I think is still pretty solid.
Yeah, I see that being an option. A different one I was thinking of to get away from the Paladin is not great in combat, but at least is interesting to me would be a total skill monkey if you did a rogue, bard, knowledge cleric,
Ooh.
where you just have like all of the skills. And that's basically what you're going for is I want to be good in every single skill and never be bad at a skill. I'd probably just do like a 1 level dip for knowledge cleric, which means you're putting your wisdom up to like 13 or 14 just for that. Just for that. I mean, also wisdom skills are like some of the best.
Right, and wisdom saves are very common.
Right. So it's not the type of character that you're going to be like shining in combat, but I think out of combat, you're going to allow the rest of your party to just stop trying at any of their skills. You got this.
And even in combat, you're not terrible. Bard Rogue is solid.
Correct.
We've had that discussion. They work well together. And slowing it down for 1 level into Cleric.
It's not the end of the world.
It's a little silly, but it's not going to kill you.
Right.
Right. I mean, having to get your wisdom that high might suck somewhat. But even still, like, you need your dex and charisma high, and then you do your wisdom medium, and then you dump strength and intelligence. Con, okay. Like, I think you could do that with point buy in the right race.
Right. And I think, like, at the end of the day, none of your skills are going to be particularly high, but the fact that you're proficient in everything kind of makes up for that.
Right. But then again, we're back to a 3-class multiclass where one of them is just a quick 1 level dip.
Yes.
When you're talking about a level 20 character, it doesn't quite feel in the spirit.
I'm sorry, you actually would need to go 2 into Cleric to get their Channel Divinity, and that's, you can tap into Divine Well of Knowledge. As an action, you choose 1 skill or tool. For 10 minutes, you have proficiency with that. So you would need to go 2 into Knowledge Domain.
Well, you don't need that.
You should.
I say knowledge
if
domain.
You want to be a
gets,
true skill monkey.
Yeah, I say the blessing of knowledge. You gain proficient in 2 additional skills. When you go lore bard, I think you get 3.
I'm curious if this, like, what's going to be missing, because I'm just
what if you
background.
Wouldn't it be hilarious?
Go half elf, obviously, where they get, I think, 2 skills.
Yeah. I was gonna say, what if you like ended up just getting proficiency in all of the skills? Like it's like, well,
that'd be incredible, and it
goes
goes
jack of all
incredibly
trades
well.
Wasted.
Yeah, it would, except for
With
initiative.
the reliable talent at 11th,
Right,
though. Everything is now, a 10.
Oh shit!
In rogue, every skill you're proficient in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you go 11 in Rogue, a little bit in Bard, and then a couple in Knowledge Domain, and you're never. I mean, what does your DM do? Like outside of combat, you're just like, well, I guess we're done, guys. We're done having any challenges.
That's crazy. And then there's also feats, like if you really needed to just get to all of them where you could get skills.
Right.
Yeah, if you truly get off the I'm useless, and if you just like, I don't care about combat, all your feats.
You still wouldn't be bad. You would still have your bard spells and your bardic inspiration and your cutting words, which is fantastic. You would still be a rogue with sneak attack and
like your 15 is your highest stat and your level 20, which is like a concerningly low to hit.
Reminder that bardic inspirations rely on charisma being high, so it would actually suck to only have that at 2.
Right.
So you're doing this for the skills. You're not doing it for being useful. But still, as you said,
I'm curious. I do want to try this out because I wonder how many you can get.
Okay. Yeah, play around with it in D&D Beyond. If you make something, we'll share it with the episode.
Yeah, because that's the only other class that I was like, that'd be kind of interesting. And I started off with like Rogue, Bard, and Wizard. Because at least Wizard, it's like still just that idea of being the ultimate out of combat skill monkey. Because then they just get some really good spells like miscellaneous detect magic. You take Portent, of course, so that way you just never get a bad roll. But I think the Knowledge Cleric is a little more fitting, and I'd probably go with that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you think the 3 pure martials mixed together, fighter?
I think as a way to salvage
rogue,
the Ranger, it makes a little bit more sense.
but what are you getting from Ranger there?
I mean, like, you want to be a Ranger, you can just like stuff dips into the class and you're not losing much. You're not gaining a whole lot. It's just all right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, why are you the Ranger? It's because you hate yourself? I don't know, man.
I find that taking more than 2 fighting styles, you end up not getting much benefit out of it. So maybe like fighter, Ranger, Rogue could work, And it would be...
No, I was saying barbarian. Fighter, barbarian, rogue. Pure martials, no spellcasting. The only issue is the barbarian with the strength. Because like fighter and rogue just both do dex and all that. We did... One of our really first episodes is barbarian rogue. And we kind of talked about how it could actually be decent.
Yeah, it's pretty good. That's a really good multiclass, actually. I hate listening to that episode because I come in there with such a shitty attitude, and now it like gets talked about, and I'm like, oh my god, giving yourself advantage on every attack for every sneak attack. Yes, like that's so good with the reckless attack.
Right, and like sneak attack needs a finesse weapon.
Yeah,
but a finesse weapon could use strength, stuff like that.
Right. I can't listen to those.
I know there's some
episodes.
Caveats. Yeah, I kind of curious to go back and listen to it. There's some caveats with it where you have to like pull out like a special like dagger.
We have the dagger bandolier. The dagger bandolier. That was awesome.
Yeah, that's why I hate that one. Because like, oh, it works technically if you break the game. It's like, no, fuck. You can't recklessly attack you can't recklessly sneak attack.
Yes, you can.
You can't.
No, you can't. It's literally they're polar opposite ideas.
They are. That's true. But still, the idea is that you're putting...
It's about having fun.
No. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage with your reckless attack by, like, attacking in a quick way that opens you up for easy attacks in order to get that more powerful strike.
Right, and like this rogue sneak attack, you just flavor like it hits that fucking hard.
Right.
It's not precise, it just hits that hard.
Yep, right in the kidneys.
Yep.
And then you just add a couple levels of fighter, battle master, of course.
Of course. Or Echo Knight, just to be an ass.
No.
And then you get style action surge, second wind.
You can't say don't. That is the point of this question, is what is a 3 multiclass that's actually interesting. So you can't just keep saying no.
No, I can
We're not
and I
building
will.
this.
You are going to be a fighter, ranger, rogue, and you're going to like it. I don't even know it. These fighting styles just like archery, defense, end of list.
Yeah. As I say, like, once you start looking into getting more than 2 fighting styles, there's no real reason for it. Yeah. You take defense, gives you +1 to AC, you're happy, and then take a, offensive fighting style that actually meshes well. You don't need more than that.
And just for a fun challenge, just 3 we haven't talked about, so obviously these 3 are going to have to be the last class character, being the druid, monk, wizard.
Whoa, God, what? Why? What? How? Stop! What? How would you do that?
I don't know.
I like it.
Right. We had druid monk recently, and we came to the conclusion that the spore druid with a monk is not terrible.
Correct.
Because the spore druid is pretty melee focused, and then the monk just kind of adds to it, and it actually worked pretty nicely.
And that wasn't recent, Kevin. That was like a year and a half ago.
No, it was druid monk.
Druid monk was a while ago.
It was Will is playing his same character, Musty, because we were talking about it.
We've been playing that campaign for 2 years.
We were trying to convince him to go into it.
Druid monk. That was 59.
I'm glad I didn't.
It's episode 59. That was...
Yeah, it's April 16th. That wasn't that long ago.
It's friggin' pandemic, man. It all just runs together. But why
in
was
the
it?
year 1873, when the ravages of the pandemic just started, we discussed the druid monk.
What do you mean, why a wizard? For the portent dice, of course.
Duh, yeah. Come on.
Oh, thank God. I was worried it was going to be something more complicated than that, but now I'm feeling at
Maybe
ease.
Blade singing? I don't know. Think about that one further.
Well, actually, no, I can entertain that.
No.
With the short sword.
Blade
short
singing
sword's a monk weapon.
is...
Don't look so angry. It's okay.
So mad.
Okay,
all right, now that actually is kind of starting to upset me. Blade singing as a elf druid monk makes a lot more sense. I'll give you that.
Okay, all right. So let's just start with this. What are the multi-classing requirements? It'd be 13 dex, wisdom, and intelligence, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's not fine. It's not fine.
No, that's totally pretty fun.
And then
those are all important things.
Blade singing, you need intelligence to be up to get anything out of that. Adds to your AC.
AC, yeah, initiative, and then maybe not initiative. I don't think that's right. AC and then concentration checks.
It's been so long since we talked about it, right? Not like earlier this episode. Let's see. So Blade Singing. Okay, so you get bonus to any Constitution saving throws, equaling your intelligence modifier. You get the AC equal to your int, walking speed plus 10, advantage on dex. That's it. The
Acrobatics checks.
initiative.
Not even dex.
Initiative's the war magic.
Right. It would probably mainly be to grab portent dice.
Yeah, we're gonna grab portent dice, and then what?
Yeah. Or also then 3 in Artificer to get a Battlesmith to make intelligence better.
Oh no. But then what's the point of going Druid and Monk? The whole point, in my opinion, of Druid...
Punch.
The whole point of Druid Monk is so that you can use Wisdom for everything. Because Druid can cast Shillelagh, and then all of their normal attacks that aren't punchy, can just use Wisdom.
Right, and they can apply their spore damage to all the monk attacks.
Right, so then if you then say, actually we're going to use Intelligence instead...
Yeah, it doesn't really work. It was just the 3 we haven't used yet, so...
Yes.
I was looping them in
For a reason, Kevin. Keep it that way.
Yeah. I can say Monk is very hard to multiclass with, as we discussed. Druid's been pretty tough, too, I feel like. Actually, there's some cool things, like Druid Paladin, because you get Eagle Smites and stuff like that, or Raging Bears.
Druid, Barbarian. I disagree. Druid's actually been one of the better ones to multiclass into.
Yeah. You know what? The issue is a lot of times it feels like it doesn't need it, because Druid is just so solid on its own. Especially then you're giving up to level 20 and...
Fair.
Blah, blah, blah. But there are some
level 20, you can't
Raging
give
Bear,
that up, man.
Smiting Eagles, whatever. So, all right.
Raging Bear, Smiting Eagle.
Okay, Druid, Paladin, Barbarian. Moon Druid, Paladin, Barbarian. So a Raging, Smiting Bear.
Oh, no.
You could do it. You could do it. It'll
Bear
happen.
Eagle.
The only problem is the Moon Druid, the challenge rating, like what beast you could turn into is dependent on the Druid level. And it kind of feels like it just keeps up, and then you're slowing it down a lot.
I would do that for like a level 15 one-shot, where it's like, you don't even care if your character lives. You're like, I just want to turn into a bear, and I want to just smite people with my
Rage
claws.
and recklessly attack and smite.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do that. I know I'm not going to be as good as anybody else here, and I'm going to drop that form in like a turn when I get hit with any amount of damage. But if I can do all of that, I will be happy. At least the rage would have the damage any physical.
Yeah. Yeah, naturally you go Barbarian.
Yeah, but this is stupid. This is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Just
I don't know. It sounds fun to me. I don't think it's that terrible. With the rage, having damage and then being able to do it
strength,
twice a day.
Wisdom, charisma requirements.
Oh. Yeah.
You replace all your stats when you transform, so
That's true.
And, if you get up to 10, Raging Barbarian Earth Elemental sounds pretty fucking annoying.
It does. That's fair.
Who could smite?
I guess you only need 2 levels in Paladin. Maybe 3 if you want to get your Oath. And then 3 for Barbarian. So we're talking 14 Druid, 3 Barbarian,
That's pretty
3
close
Pally.
to... Well, if you're Moon Druid after level 6, it's what? Your Druid level divided by 3, rounded down is the challenge rating?
Yeah.
So you're getting kind of close to maxing out the challenge rating anyways.
Once you get the Earth Elemental, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing, it just takes up both of your...
Yeah, which
Wild
flips
shape shots.
to not mattering anymore at 20, which we already threw out the window.
Right.
Wait,
That's just a broken feature as it is.
you're saying it...
What are you saying, wait on?
Oh, it expends... I forgot about that. That Elemental Wild Shape expends 2 uses?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a lot more balanced than I thought it was.
Yeah, it breaks at 20.
Right.
Then you can no longer kill the character, and it's just annoying. And there's no like weaseling your way out of it. There's not like, well, technically in this situation. No. They're just invincible.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a short or long rest ability, the wild shape.
Right.
I had the long in my head, so short rest a little better. And then you could stick in at half your druid level, I think, so 7 hours. I mean, you probably would not run into a limit there, actually.
Yeah, but can you talk as an Earth Elemental?
Who needs to talk? You're a
gives a
smiting,
shit, man?
raging earth elemental.
You're too mad to
You're
talk.
not-
What do I have to talk
You're
about
not the
anymore?
talky character. You're not the face of the party.
What is there to discuss? I'm an Earth Elemental who can smite. Let's fight.
Or fire elemental. Also feels fitting.
Yes.
They're just not as tanky.
All right. Well, okay.
Well, this was a fun kind of diversion.
Yeah. This actually,
good conversation,
there's some
yeah.
neat ones. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
I'm super glad that we're not doing an episode for each of these, though.
No, there would be so many bad episodes. That's just too much.
I think if there are ones that people specifically want us to talk about, let us know. Because I could see us saying, like, we'll do,
open to that.
another Ask Monsters Multiclass around the whatever combination that you think is interesting. Fine. But yeah, that's never going to be a full-on thing.
Yeah, for a deeper discussion. Yeah, especially as we're going to start running out of the multiclasses in about 6 months here.
Stop saying that.
Now, nobody knows.
We officially have...
No one could have predicted this.
We have 13 multiclasses left, people. So...
The supercomputer has finished crunching the numbers. We are running out of multiclasses.
For just $5 a day, you could get us more multiclasses.
Yeah, no, we should start a Patreon tier. $100 a month, we will do that 3 multiclasses. 2 hours, every single 3 multiclass combination.
Just for that one person, though.
Just for that person. They release it publicly, we will take you to court.
Oh my god. I'm going to put that up. I'm going to make that an actual thing. Just for the joke. And if you actually give us $100, I'm going to refund you your money.
Okay, there you go. I was going to say, I'm not willing to commit to that.
Yeah, no, I would give up the $100. I don't want to talk about 3 multiclass for 2 hours.
On like a weekly basis? No. I don't have that type of time.
Oh my god. All right. But if you do have any questions like this, please send them our way through whatever social media outlets. I think this Ask Monsters and Multiclass thing has spawned some really great discussions.
Yeah, and we might kind of start seeing this morph into being the more main segment of the show as we start running out of multiclasses.
Right, like our Sorcerer episode last time.
Yeah.
Otherwise...
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Next time on Monsters and Multiclass.
Join us for another Artificer episode as we discuss the Artificer Rogue and then the Durgar from mostly Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. There's a lot in there.